welcome in New York to episode 147 of the Post 90 podcast. You know, we all knew there would be an end of season episode at some point. I don't think we all knew that we'd be talking about some of the things that we have on the docket.
Yeah.
A lot of surprising things, starting off kind of with our result against the Red Bulls now, 2 weeks removed, but we'll get into some analysis about that. And then obviously Cushing is no longer the manager, which I think is a surprise to a lot of us. It seems like it would have been a surprise to Cushing based on press conferences days leading up to the sacking. So a lot to talk about. We'll talk a little bit about the broader MLS as well. We're obviously moving closer to the MLS Cup at this point, and there are more than a few things to be upset about talking about that as NYCFC fans. And I don't know, I guess I'll swing it to you. And what do you think is the most pressing thing that we need to tackle?
I mean, we're blessed with a glorious hate watch opportunity for the MLS Cup, which, you know, for me personally, if NYCFC isn't in it, and we've only really been in it once, there's not a whole ton of excitement for it in my eyes. Like, I'll watch it and maybe catch a half of it, but I'm an NYCFC fan. I'm not a total MLS fan, and so the opportunity to get a hate watch one more for the rest of the season, like, I love that opportunity. Sucks because the circumstances kind of are lending itself to the fact that we may have let our rival beat us and win a cup. Like, that is something that we have to all sleep with at night for the next week or so, and it might be hell for the next year on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, somebody said it on Twitter, and I can't remember exactly who it was, but they said the biggest disappointment kind of with going out against the Red Bulls is, regardless of the fact that it's a derby and we lose that one, it's like, when do we think again an Eastern Conference team will have as easy of a road to the MLS Cup?
Right.
That we could have had, that ultimately the Red Bulls had. And that's just off the back of Miami getting eliminated, Columbus getting eliminated, and us eliminating Cincy. Right. And then, at that point, Orlando is the trip to the Eastern Conference Finals, and LA Galaxy kind of takes care of business on their end, but then Ricky Pooch tears his ACL in the Western Conference Finals. I think he has 7 combined goals and assists over the course of the playoffs, and obviously we've talked about on this show how he was probably at least my front runner for MVP. If I had a vote, that would be who I would cast it for. So for the Red Bulls to dodge them as well, or whoever would have been the prospective team from the East, it is just an incredible opportunity to go out there and kind of get a trophy. And squandering it feels worse when you know the road would have been a lot easier than you assumed it would have been.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, obviously he amazing on his part to do what he did with the torn ACL. Like, that's insane. But he is now going to be done. Like, once the swelling starts, you're not stopping that. You're going to have to get it surgically repaired and all that stuff. But the only thing is, like, yes, in theory, they had a Mickey Mouse, cup run and to get there. But at the end of the day, it kind of stops at the point of it went through us. Like, we actively had the chance to stop it. Yeah. And we did not. And not only did we not, if we want to go into the game, it's like, yeah, we looked dangerous, but we didn't even put one up.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, moving on to the game itself, it's going to be hard to put ourselves back in the shoes. Obviously, we were at the stadium alongside all the fans, all of the other media that was in attendance, kind of living and dying on every kick. It seemed like the rule of no reactions in the press box was ignored for the night. And just kind of from the get-go, I mean, I felt pretty comfortable prior to kickoff, but once we got into kickoff and kind of Red Bull style of play with their, just like what was honestly a relentless press on the night, like, really kind of upset whatever rhythm that Cushing tried to come into the game with, or whatever tactics he tried to come into the game with. They found a way to upset our players kind of every step of the way. And they try to do that too, where they get in your head and they get you frustrated. And I feel like we know that as fans, and the players were still kind of allowing them to do that. Obviously, I think it was O'Toole with one of their center backs on like the right wing early in the game. Same with Hannes, like getting in these same kind of collisions with these guys and just letting them kind of mentally get the edge, which automatically kind of leads to the edge in general over the course of the game.
A lot of edge talk. But there was just, I don't know. And I know that, I forgot exactly what the guy's name was, but there was somebody we were talking to in the tunnels of the stadium that, like, the whole thing just seemed off from the jump. And there really wasn't a way to explain it. It just felt off. Like, the guy's guitar not working for the national anthem. Mm-hmm. Like, Freese giving up a banger of a goal that we haven't really seen something like that since the last time. Sean Johnson?
Or I was going to say since the last time we played not the last time, but the second to last time we played the Red Bulls. Like, if they're going to beat Freese, that's how they have to do it.
Right, and they did. Like, so from that point, they get a huge boost in confidence. I mean, shout out in a way to the away fans. Like, they traveled over the river very well. They were there in high numbers. Like, I went to go get coffee away from the press box. It was entirely Red Bulls fans. Like, I was absolutely the only NYCFC supporter.
Yeah.
I was there on business, supporter.
Yeah.
But it was just a sea of red. And so those things combined, the banger, like, they had such a boost in confidence, and they closed out the game like a confident team would.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it was one of those nights where it felt like everything kind of went wrong in terms of, fan involvement, player involvement. I mean, every pass was like misweighted, like either, slightly too heavy, slightly underpassed, and they get possession one way or another. And it just, I don't know if that comes, do you think it comes from a bit of nervousness? Obviously, we're coming off the break, which is something we often talk about, but I don't know whether some of our players, maybe it got to them a little bit, the derby, like maybe the lights were too bright.
Yeah, I mean, it was literally the biggest game of the season, and not just because of, obviously it's the playoffs and win or go home type thing. Everything about it, the derby, it's a night game, late afternoon game. All of these things, I think when you're nervous and it's cold out, you're done. Like, you're screwed, cooked.
Yeah, and it almost felt like Cushing, and obviously there needs to be a large conversations about him and kind of where we stand now with him no longer being the manager. But I felt like this was one of those games where we did see what felt like at some points of the season a rare mismanagement from Cushing. A lot of times there were a few stretches where we had the 10-game win streak, or kind of the highlight moments like Philly and Red Bulls back-to-back and then stealing a point from Miami. And those moments where it felt like he was making the right subs at least. He was putting in the correct players when he does make those subs at the correct times of the game. And like in this game, what did we get to the 70th minute and there hadn't been a sub made yet? And then something like Alonso ends up going the full 90. But when we were going for it against Cincy, we had Baggy and Jovan up top in a two-striker system, like properly going for it. Instead, we have Alonso kind of, I mean, he's been MIA for the whole Cincy series. Right. And then running into this one.
Well, I mean, this one he had a few chances that
one had to be scored.
Right across goal.
From Milenic.
Those type of chances were the ones where I'm like, okay, maybe it's just not meant to be spiritually or whatever. Like, whatever you want to think about, like, it just wasn't there. But yeah, I mean, you talk about Alonso going the full 90 when he's been sitting on hat tricks and being pulled at the 70th minute. Like, in past games, it boggles your mind to think about, like, this. They let this dude go 90, and when he's like clearly whiffing on balls. And
Cushing has stood on those substitutions in the past, saying to us specifically, or to other media members specifically, that he doesn't feel that Alonso could go the full 90. Right. So, like, at what point, in the biggest game of the season, one of the biggest games in club history, are we not yanking him? If that's our understanding of him as a player. Which I totally understand. In the presser, he says, you have a 17-goal guy, you're down 2 goals. How are you going to take him off? And it's like, okay, well, but then you have Hannes, who's been relatively ineffective and invisible for 90 minutes, and he's also given a big leash. Like, take him off, keep Alonso on if you want that danger, and put a proper striker on. Like, throw anything at the wall other than, I feel like, what he did. And that's what he did against Cincy too. That's what to me is like the biggest point is a week or two prior, he had at least an understanding of what going for it all meant. And like, for whatever reason, that blueprint was completely different against the Red Bulls. And, you know, I'm not sure, just from like a tactics or a planning basis, like how, especially moving into the 39th, 40th week of the season, how that's not ironed in, that like you are doing, like you have something in place that's going to happen every game. Like, this is the lever that we pull when things are fucked. Like,
Right.
this is what we do. And that's what we saw against Cincy. Ultimately, like, everything worked out against them. Like, how do we go away from that lever?
Yeah, I think those things go to possibly why he doesn't have a job right now. We've talked about it time and time again of the over tinkering, the, you know, overthinking things, the, you know, the meme of the bald head being like sizzling and hot, like overthinking stuff. You don't really have to think that hard. You know the things that have worked, you know things that have not worked. And in your head, you've come to the conclusion that Alonso's not a 90-minute guy. Why is he now a 90-minute guy in the biggest game, in the biggest moment?
Yeah, I mean, those are the questions that, unfortunately, we won't get answers to, because the club decided that, I guess, it wouldn't matter what the answer is. It was just kind of an unacceptable result. And, you know, really, I felt like it. Do you think his history with the club as a manager had a lot to do with it? Or do you think this was really like he had to be the fall guy for the Derby playoff game?
No, I don't think that our front office is the type to care about a fall guy. Like, I don't think we've really had those type of situations before. I genuinely think that it was, you know, a lot of things. I mean, obviously there's a lot that goes into a decision like that, but you look at him, you know, after 3 seasons, his best season was, you know, with the squad that he inherited, and he really didn't do much with it.
And that he kind of attempted to run into the ground.
Right.
Remember the 10-game losing streak at the end of, what was it, 2022, 2023?
Yep.
So.
But then, I mean, you even, you know, to do type of, you know, like a pros and cons type of thing, like that team that he inherited got gutted immediately. And he missed the playoffs with what was left of the squad and the additions that he was given. And then he gets that team to the semifinals the next season.
Yeah.
You know, though you see year over year progression, like it's there. You could make the argument and sit there and say the team did improve. The team overperformed.
And that was the argument he was making. I mean, after we heard him go out in the Leagues Cup, that was directly word for word what he said. We had a goal to improve on our finish from last year. And we did that by what they surpassed it by a round or two. And then, yeah, same thing here. Obviously, it's easier, not easier to make the playoffs than it is to not, but like when the bar is set at not making the playoffs last year, like we need to definitely very much overachieve that. You know,
but we don't get first rounded
Cincy
though.
was again, not getting first rounded against Cincy is like a pretty
winning
big
2
achievement.
games. You know, those are 2 playoff games that he won.
Yeah, I felt like. Do you think he was blindsided by it?
I would definitely. I mean, he made the bold proclamation, "I will be here next season." Like he literally did. He literally did say that.
It's so crazy. You would have to assume he's having positive conversations about the future to say that to the media, right?
Right. Yeah.
That's wild.
That's where it's, you know.
And the FO just turns around and says, "Get out."
Yeah, and we both assumed that he would be the manager for the stadium. Like that was.
Yeah. Barring like missing the playoffs again.
Well, yeah, like barring the 9 games next season happening again and we don't recover from it. That type of thing.
Or at least the caretaker, the manager until the stadium. When I think a lot of NYCFC fandom are expecting that to be like the splash year. Like I think a lot of people have it in their mind at the moment that we're winning the league 2027 in our home stadium. Like, I think a lot of people have that in their brain.
Look, I'm
like they think Big Daddy CFG is writing many blank checks to many players and men like Pep Guardiola to come in and guarantee that.
Well, he just got extended, so there goes that.
Well, he's I believe it's up for 2027, which is fueling the conspiracy.
Right, but I think he got a 3-year beyond that, I think.
Oh,
right?
okay.
Or is it just more money and it also still runs up in 27?
I think it still runs up. Because
Gotcha.
I believe he only got a 1-year extension. Which that's part of fueling this conspiracy.
Well, yeah, I mean, you could argue they want to keep him in CFG. They're going to put him, but with our luck, he'll be in Melbourne or something. Like, he's going to be, I don't know. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
Personally.
like, I feel like I've been trying to temper my expectations on expecting a trophy 4 years from now, when we have as tough a time as we did in this playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, this team has a long way to go. But with that being said, I mean, Red Bulls kind of have come out of nowhere in a way, and they're playing for a cup. Like,
yeah,
I know it's hard to look at a rival and say we need to emulate that in some way, but I don't know. That's where it kind of goes to the balancing beam of, do I believe in it? Do I not? I understand the firing, but I don't believe in it, and I'll just say that flat out. Like, I understand why. You got kept a clean sheet against in a derby in the playoffs on your home turf. Flat out, that can't happen. But the project, if you look at it from a 3,000-foot view, the project was cooking.
Yeah.
He was progressing. The team was getting better. Individual players were getting better. And so it's tough. I don't know. It's tough to look at that and be like, you got to pull the plug on it.
Yeah. I don't know. That's where I feel like the fall guy thing comes into play. Because, like, it does seem, from the conversations that he was having with the club, and that he was kind of, in a way, publicly commenting on by making those public statements, like, he is alluding to the fact that everything's kosher in the background. Like, yeah. I'm here. We have a great relationship in the background, and he's talked about all year how we're building. I think the only time that he mentioned that we had championship ambitions was in the preseason.
Right.
And then the next week he came out and wanted to correct the record immediately that we're obviously a very young team, one of the youngest in the league. And this isn't a rebuilding year, but it's a year to build on so that in the future we can be better.
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree with you. I think, yeah, he must have been blindsided unless he was flat out lying at times, which
I mean,
has happened before.
Yeah, it definitely could happen for sure.
But I know what you mean. Like, I did see the vision as well. I don't think all players were getting better, and I don't think all players were getting used, which was another kind of narrative that was being talked about on Twitter. Obviously, I think it was it Matt Doyle talking about the number of dollars that we had on the bench that were not being used in what is the game that we've built it up to be. One of the biggest games in club history, obviously the biggest game of the season. And we have guys like Ojeda coming in with 10, 15 minutes left, and he hadn't played since September. So he's on about 2 weeks rest, or 2 months rest. We obviously had Jovan on there, Julian, Baki, Burke, obviously some for different reasons than others. Burke had his injury. But that's about just a little over 20 million tied up in cash, not having any impact on the game.
I mean, not attacking you, attacking what, Matt Doyle? I think that is a donut.
Okay.
Just for that statement alone, like, you're a nerd.
Sorry, 30 million, not 20, 30.
It could be 50 million.
Yeah.
There's 11 spots on the field. I agree with, Alonso probably shouldn't have been out there for 90. Hannes probably shouldn't have lasted as long as he did. Those are valid points, but to sit there and be like, well, there's an 11 million guy and a 5 million, like, who cares? There's 11 spots on the field. He needs to field people who he feels are going to help him win. And
I think as NYCFC fans, that's why I wanted to address it, because I think a lot of times things get spun online when you're just looking at, and I'm not suggesting that, like, these journalists are not watching every game or listening to every press conference and things like that, but, like, Julian, if we take him as an example, Ojeda at times, obviously Baki might be the biggest representative of this, and Jovan. I mean, we could throw all four attackers that were put together to make that 30 million sum that was listed, have proven to all of us fans time and time again that they aren't the guy to be on the field at that time.
100%.
Like, we know that. We all know that as fans watching every game and just kind of being around the club and understanding where everybody is at, especially form-wise, but then just in terms of the production that they have on the field when they do get those few amount of minutes, like they've not shown what needs to be shown to be put in that scenario.
100%. If you look at Julian, whatever he's costed, has he shown that dollar amount of quality more than once or twice?
And now it's no.
Has Jovan?
No.
Has Munsef? Maybe. If you want to pay...
Out of those four,
yeah,
he's shown the
if you
most.
want to pay $1 million or $2 million for somebody to press, 100% Munsef has shown it.
Now, I think what would be the correct way to approach that conversation is why weren't they put in the position to be difference makers? You know, it's not that, like, it would be silly to say, like you said, just because he's worth $11 million, he gets the playoff minutes. Like, that's silly. But why, I guess, have we not, and this is what I'm thinking from the perspective of, like, this is, in some ways, it makes a lot of sense. Like, it is a bad investment to have players rotting on the bench that cost more than the rest of the roster, or the rest of the 11 for that matter combined. But, like, maybe that's where Cushing also gets a knock in terms of team selection or getting players prepped or into the 11. Like, I would assume the suits at CFG are, and we've seen it a million times, are wanting to flip these players. And, like, they're not going to be flippable if they're not playing minutes and creating that value to be sold to somebody. So that would be my question. Like, why is this the first time we've seen Ojeda in 2 months?
My question to your question is this. Is it Nick Cushing's job to win soccer games, or is it his job to flip players and make sure that that the front office is getting the most from their money?
That is a question for David Lee, I think.
And is it Nick Cushing's job, or is it the front office's job to figure out how much players are worth and how much we're buying players for? It is Nick Cushing's job to field the best team that he feels possible, and to develop people and try to, let people shine in training and all this stuff to create the best team to win games. Mm-hmm. It is, in my opinion, it is not his job to sit there and go, well, we paid $5 million for him. He probably goes for 12 now. If we play him 6 more times, he's $20 million easy.
That's what I'm concerned about.
Not his job.
So the questions you were just asking, I think, are maybe the questions that Cushing is asking potentially himself, or that he is asking the club. Like, am I supposed to be winning games here? Or am I supposed to just be running Ojeda until he gets you an extra $4 million off the top of whatever we bought him for, so we could ship him off to a Girona or a South American affiliate? That to me sounds like words that Cushing should be saying to the FO to understand properly. Because, like, he was let go for a reason. And I feel like from a winning games perspective, and that could be controversial, like you said, from a project standpoint, he was pretty much in line with what we should have expected.
Overperformed, in my
So
opinion.
that's where I get concerned that the club is more concerned about the other intangibles, about the money.
Yeah.
And the assets not being appreciated because they're not playing on the field.
Right.
Which is which is an impossible situation to put a manager in.
Yeah, well, I think of guys like Justin Hack, which is difficult to talk about because although he has won, in my opinion, he has won consideration for starting next season every game.
Yeah.
Like, he is
this season.
He has brought himself into the conversation of, okay, we need to start this guy. With that being said, I don't feel that he feels that way, or that he doesn't feel that with the conversations he's having behind the scenes that he feels that that's the case for next season, which led to him, coming out and saying, I want to start somewhere. If it's not here, it's not here, essentially.
Yeah. No, that is what.
Like,
that's close word
almost
for word
bar for
what he
bar.
said. Yeah.
Right? Whereas us as fans, we're looking at it like, there's no way this dude doesn't start.
Yeah.
It's 60% of games. Let's say 60%.
This season, he should have started 60%.
So I think maybe the front office sees that type of stuff and is like, how are you not reassuring somebody who, yes, could be of value, but is more valuable to us to have in the building? Because we want a kid from New York that does well, that has a story of coming up. Like, all of those things, we want that more than money.
Mm-hmm. And not to like speculate, but like that does come a bit down to like man management.
Right.
And
which is his biggest perk, allegedly.
Allegedly. But then we have we do have at this point, and I would say Justin Hack now falls under that radar of things kind of discounting the man management of Cushing. Yeah. You have kind of the saga with Chanot, although we've had him being the lowest common denominator in a few situations to kind of sweep that under the rug. We had Tales.
Yeah.
GP was unrelated, obviously just got sold for a big bag. And then we have kind of Hack coming out and saying that as well. And you're right, I think
Jovan, I mean,
that's a
right
part
or
of it
wrong,
too.
Jovan, and I would lump in his family.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of other people that could have been attributed to it, because I feel like there's been more. Baki hasn't really been upset with his playtime. He's been pretty understanding of his own form.
Well, at least publicly.
Yeah, at least publicly. That's fair.
Which, who knows, that could be... I mean, Braza definitely, I think, wants to go somewhere and start next year.
Yeah. Him I feel a bit differently about, because he's getting pretty old.
Is he?
I don't know.
Am I old?
In terms of our team, I mean, we are old in terms of...
Oh, yeah, we're ancient.
Yeah, in terms of kids on our team, I mean, we are in the upper end, but
yeah, I mean, Braza, to me, it's like you got beat out by a dude who's playing out of his mind.
Yeah,
simply.
But it's also like, how much do you want your manager to, what would be the correct word, like manipulate players that should be starting to be okay with not starting?
Yeah,
and especially when you're a fan of the humans and kind of the players outside of just the club, that becomes kind of a conflict of interest as well, because you're now damaging a career or improvement that they could have on their own.
Well, and that brings up a good point of, I think why some of these players could be feeling extra hurt by it, by not playing, is because when you have a guy like Cushing who's so seemingly down to earth and having these conversations with you, when he's, telling you left and right, I believe in you, but not ever showing you and never letting you play.
Yeah.
Like, that is going to sting so much more than if it was just some guy who's like your coach and your boss.
The other people I was trying to think of, Jason and Thiago Andrade.
Well, yeah.
Thiago very much form related.
Thiago just sucks.
But Jason, obviously, he came out after his deal was done and Tales' deal was done, and he put the 2 out of 3 with the stopwatch on his Instagram story, alluding to the fact that there were other players leaving on not necessarily best terms for roster reasons, minute reasons, whatever you want to call it. So yeah, I mean, maybe that could definitely be part of it. The fact that, you obviously don't want kind of loose lips and press conferences after games, after devastating losses either. Yeah. Talking about selling out to another team. It's like Juan Soto after the Yanks bombed out. Like, that's what Hack did, kind of. He's like, I'm available to all 32 teams. Like,
yeah, he did.
Whoever wants to call.
Hack gets the pass for me because he truly has worked himself into this position, and that's him. Losing to your rival at home, playing a lot of minutes. I mean, he absolutely destroyed that center back with his shoulder. Like, he put it all on the line. Like, those raw emotions, of course, you're going to react in a certain way. I think that's him putting his flag in the ground and saying, I want to start. Publicly, I want to start. And that's, I think, the first time we've heard that publicly.
Oh, yeah.
Which just lends itself to all of the things of, like, all of the stuff that we've seen from Hack, where it's kind of like this, I'm not the little boy in the academy anymore. I want to start. I'm going to play hard.
Yep.
Play me.
Yeah. I mean, you have to live and die by that moxie, too, that your players that are good has. Yep. Like, the reason why he's going to drop a shoulder on a center back like that in the derby, or he's going to score that pen against Cincy, talk shit to the opposing fans and rile them up, is like the same reason why he's going to make those comments in the press or in the post game. So you kind of have to live and die by that. Yep. And yeah, I mean, if it was up to us, obviously he has to find a role in this team. And there definitely is one. And, there was interesting conversations with the expansion draft being talked about today. I think the outfield put out a form with a list of players that will essentially be at risk after you select 12 of them. The rest can just be plucked by San Diego. And when you have that conversation, you start to kind of analyze players, I think, under a different light than you would. Because I think in a lot of cases, we just assume that players will be a part of our team because they currently are.
Right.
But with a lot of
that's how most rosters work.
Yeah, but with the convoluted laws and rules of the MLS, other teams can literally just come and say, I want him, and then they can have him on their team. So taking a look at some of those and some of the comments that we got back after we posted some of our selections online, having a conversation about Burke feels like a pertinent one, considering kind of his injury history and even what we've seen from him on the field. Obviously scrolling through some of the results and the match ratings that he had over the course of the season, I'm not sure that I would always start him, or I would prefer to start him over Hack.
Yeah.
And the only reason I would knock that is I think we need to find a way to get Hack in the midfield in an advanced position by any means. And if that means at the expense of Keaton, I am open to it. I know that's an extremely controversial opinion to some people, but I will settle for starting Hack at center back if it gets him the minutes that he needs to stay at this club.
Yeah, it's tough because I think the number one thing I hate in sports analysis and, punditry, if you will, like the number one thing I dislike the most is when a conversation gets boiled down to this or that. Like it can be both, but if I were to be pinned in that corner, obviously I'm picking Hack. Like availability is, and not to be cliche and say things that a million people have said, but like availability is the best ability. To be available every single game, not playing through pain, is the best thing that you could do. And the cherry on top of that is that I feel Hack has performed better. Just flat out, he adds something that Burke doesn't. So if it's, pick blue or red and Hack's red, I'm picking red.
Yeah. Well, even in the Red Bull game, obviously within the first, 5 minutes, Hack had that incredible goal-denying tackle. I mean, that's simply what it was. Like, Freese was beat, the ball was kind of coming across the goal, and Hack from a few yards behind the Red Bulls player, I think behind Vinzier, slid in and made that goal-denying tackle. And those are the kind of moments that really highlight it. Obviously, I think his distribution or just his ability to move the ball up the field kind of by himself without needing to always pass it is something similar, not to be the guy that just relates to players from the 2021 team, but like Collins would do that. Like Chanot was enough of an Iron Man to sit back there and allow Collins to take that tactic from Ronnie to take it up into the midfield and then play a pass. I don't think Hack is necessarily at the level of Collins with the long passes, kind of the left foot that Collins had, or defensively, but as serviceable, if not more serviceable with what we've seen in the playoffs than we've seen from Burke at times.
Yeah, definitely. But, there's the other argument of, it doesn't have to be this or that. You could keep both if they're both, if you choose to protect, obviously, Burke, because I don't think Hack is up to even...
He's homegrown, so I think he's safe regardless.
Right, so...
But I think from Hack's perspective, it's a this or that. That's what I'm concerned about.
Well, no, because in my opinion...
Or he forces himself out, it seems.
I think Maxi is done. I think we could probably get another year out of him, but I think mentally he's probably retiring. Whether or not he would be protected or selected or whatever, I think, the decision becomes clearer if we do decide to protect him. Then he's going to be here, obviously. But I think he retires. I think, even though I think we've tried it before, Keaton in that Maxi role could work. And you could slide Hack into Keaton's role.
Yeah.
That's another path to get Hack.
Yeah. I mean, it's so many different permutations, especially, we'll have a Malachi back next year.
Didn't he have Similar thing to Pacheco.
Yeah, I believe people were saying if we had made it to the Cup, like he could have seen minutes. Like he could have been okay to play. I don't know if it would have been smart.
I mean, we saw him running
Yeah.
at the field.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. I don't know if it would have been smart. Obviously, I started Pacheco first game back, and he got 1.6 fantasy points. So I don't know what soccer-wise that would translate to Malachi's ability to do anything in a Cup final.
yeah, but he took way more time off
He did.
and doesn't play football.
And is way younger. Yeah, doesn't get his ass beat every game. So it's...
Who's like your number one? Well, Santi and Freese. Like your top five. Who's your top five?
Top five
like,
to
must
keep?
be protected.
Freese, Santi, Malachi, O'Toole, and Thiago Martins.
Those are your top five?
Yeah. Which means I would, there's a lot of names on this list. If you guys haven't seen it, obviously go to the Outfield's Twitter or Blue Sky. They've kind of got it posted everywhere, and it'll show you who the options are. But there are some names on here that are scary to potentially lose.
I would say my top five in no order, but Santi, Freese, Malachi, Thiago. I won't even do a fifth.
No fifth. Isn't that the exact same five I gave? Or four of the five that I gave?
Yeah.
Yeah.
O'Toole, vibes-wise, is cool.
I think the one thing I thought of is who they choose to protect could give us insight into players they're looking to bring in, position-wise at least.
Yeah.
Like, in my opinion, you have to save an O'Toole because we don't have another left back. I mean, you would hope McFarland, right, could just be the guy next season.
Didn't he sign a deal with
I don't know
City?
that he's gone. I don't think that he's gone next season.
Is it like they bought him but loaned him thing?
I think, or just like bought him with condition to leave at whatever year.
Yeah. But, I mean...
But you can't have one left back either. Like, we would have to bring somebody in if one of them left.
True.
So...
Well, only one person can get selected from us, right? Or
no, I don't know. San Diego gets to pick 5 players from across the league, and we get to protect 12 out of...
You know what I'll say? Yeah, oh, God, I hate that, like, players can ever even hear this. But, like, please, bro, Tana playing for San Diego would be so cool. Oh, it would be so sick. But also Barraza. I feel like Barraza is
that would be tough.
Would be such a cornerstone of San Diego.
And we have a way of shipping off backup keepers and them becoming demons across the league.
I fear he would.
In Stuver, in Sean Johnson. Yeah. I mean, Sean Johnson was a demon before he left.
Yeah.
But, like, he kind of continues that reign wherever he goes. So, yeah, I mean, the goalkeeper crew over here is no slouches on the team.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I think that'll be the most interesting part, though. Like, if we do lose a player, that will almost automatically require us to replace them in the transfer market, whether they're a depth piece or somebody that's starting at the moment. It seems like no matter what, we'll lose somebody that has gotten at least a few hundred minutes this season.
Yeah,
if they were to pick somebody.
Pretty much everyone has gotten a mix or a run of play.
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how the roster shakes out. It sucks that, in order to add, typically you have to subtract as well in terms of roster. So that'll suck, but...
Have to see what happens. I mean, it's going to be a long offseason. It's going to be longer if LA Galaxy can't just get the fucking job done.
I know.
I mean,
they got
what you
Royce.
have to do.
Like, they got Royce.
They have a lot more than... Yeah, I mean, Royce, Peck... I mean, losing Ricky Pooch to me is like...
Yeah, that's...
I don't know. I think it's a death note. It's a death sentence. But don't they have no, that's LAFC has Lloris in goal.
Yeah.
I was going to say, like, what are we doing?
No, but they got some dogs, and their coach is good, too.
You saw that Chanot own goal?
Yeah.
To not lose LAFC the game, but, like...
Essentially.
Yeah. They lost by a goal.
They lost by a goal.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I mean, I think in terms of this episode, I think that's a pretty good place to leave it.
Yeah.
I think maybe a end of season, like, full breakdown type of thing.
Definitely revisiting the over-unders in the future, seeing
revisiting that.
Where we netted out with that. I have no recollection of.
I think also
where
if we were to
went.
go through like our roster from the beginning of the season, going player by player and, you know, kind of giving opinions on them and if they improved or didn't improve and things like that.
And maybe doing like I know there's some Google Sheets floating around that we are a part of, or at least invited to witness, as the outfield masterfully puts together option years,
Yep.
payments amounts for each year, contracts and who's around till when. And maybe like doing maybe like a more YouTube type video as opposed to like a podcast type episode,
Right.
where we kind of review our roster and give everybody an understanding of where we're at with everything.
We can like play GM in a way.
Yeah, would be pretty, you know, some transparency that we feel like the club probably doesn't get, but that
Yeah.
we can provide by way of some of the, you know, expert media members that we have in our community. So
Yep.
maybe something like that. Try to stay as busy as we can
Try to
during the
keep
off
us busy.
season.
Yeah.
I know we want to tear certainly parts of this studio to shreds.
We got to burn it to the ground. Unfortunately, it's got to be burned down.
I don't even know if we overlay the image of what we came into today. But some longtime listeners will remember, I couldn't tell you what episode it was, but the raccoon, it must have been close to the Philly game because that's when that was like the craze, was in our studio during a live episode.
Actively crawling in the ceiling.
The whole hour. It was
And
like
then-
a flu game for us. Among many other factors that make recording in here a consistent flu game. Like literally we'll give you the flu after you leave the studio, for any number of reasons.
I don't know. There must have been dogs outside because there was a raccoon in here going wild.
Yeah. So we came into the studio today, and the raccoon was definitely in the studio before us.
Yeah, he warmed it up for us.
Yeah. And for you audio-only listeners, check it out on YouTube. Maybe it makes it its
it
own way
doesn't.
to a social media platform. Maybe it doesn't. You know, I don't know that. I don't want to be like the bitch who live like this meme.
Yeah.
But that is what I feel you guys
Yeah.
will get if we were to fully divulge the state of the room that we're in to you.
Yeah.
I mean, that is,
Yeah. Yeah.
we are that.
We do apparently live like that.
So, yeah, more to come. We'll stay as busy as we can in the off season. Like I said, already some.
On cue. This
This is a script. The raccoon is actually like, this is the first time since the time that we just talked about that we've heard it, and he's literally above us.
probably wondering why there's people in his house.
Yeah, he's in the ceiling right now. So we may have to bring some of this furniture into the other building.
We will see. We will do that and try to script out the. Well, now we know how he gets in.
Over there.
Yep.
Somewhere over there.
Yeah. And yeah, script out this
They're gonna think
end of
it's fake.
season video.
They're going to think it's fake. Maybe we had to run up there with the camera. But yeah, we have some content ideas, and we will share what we can as the off season kind of tumbles on. Obviously, there's going to be a lot to react on with new players and players departing. Seeing what ultimately happens with this cup could be devastating or an extremely fun day online. It remains to be seen, but we will record when we record.
We will get and this is the winter following through.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we made it through another season. I believe is this season 5 for us, which just seems wild. Obviously, big thanks to everybody that listens, everybody that watches or interacts online. I know we're already scheming up big plans for next season with kind of increasing the forms of content that we have and attempting to go harder than we have in the past. But yeah. I mean, there's a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, and like I said, the season of following through.
The next year or this year?
Starting now. It's the off season.
Oh, I got you.
We got to work like the team has to work to get better.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this thing, it allows us to have very cool conversations, be a part of very cool conversations that you should not be. I mean, we just shouldn't be. So very thankful for that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, kind of getting the insider view as what are truly just like fans at heart. Like, I mean, honestly, at the end of the day, that's what it is. And like, we get on here and we kind of peddle our little analysis for what it is, or punditry, as you
Or
called
our
it.
agenda.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it really boils down to kind of like a passion for the club and players that we've had kind of since the inception of the club. Like everybody listening and watching has, which is what makes it fun to kind of share together, honestly. So bring on 2025 as soon as you possibly can, MLS.
Yeah.
Don Garber. Save me, Don Garber, from this
I just want to like
nuclear winter.
hibernate and wake up and let it be the new season. But the long wait starts, the work starts, and we'll be back for next season.
Yeah.
So we will see you guys when we see you.
Yeah, intermittent.
Normally we say next week, but
Yeah,
we'll see you when we see you.
I will say it won't be next week.
It probably will not.
We, you know,
Yeah,
we
you'll be
do
gone.
need we do need a bit of a vacation, but I think some of those content ideas will definitely come through intermittently throughout the off season.
That's a word.
Is that how you say it?
Gotta be. Sounds right.
Intermittently.
Intermission is not the same thing.
Intermission?
Two different things.
Yeah. I mean, we're going on a long intermission.
All things considered, we're 5 seasons deep and we still waffle like it's the first season. So follow us anywhere that you can get a podcast. If you are looking for the end of season breakdown, I think that will be a YouTube exclusive. So check our Twitter. You'll see the link to our YouTube and you'll be able to see that there. Just because I think we'll want to have visual aids and things like that to kind of make it the best product it could be.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we'll see you guys next season.
Yeah.
Peace.
Peace.